So what would you do if you had absolutely nothing to prove, if you were just free to make any project that you liked in whatever shape that you liked to reflect your experience of life at that moment? Better yet, what would you do if you got a chance to do that with a close mate, someone you've known for over 20 years, and you've had a very similar parallel kind of existence? Well, that pretty much describes exactly what happened when Bernard Fanning and Paul Dempsey decided to make an album together. It's a great conversation that you're about to hear. It was really nice to see guys that I've not seen in some time. You're about to hear. I got back a bit further with Bernard. It's a Brisbane thing. And to spend time with these two men here in my house was just a delight. They got here quite early in the morning, so they had a big promo day. And watching them interact with Wolfgang, because he was on his way out to daycare, watching them both interact with this 4.5-year-old, because I said, tomorrow Paul and Bernard, some of Dad's friends are coming around. Some of my friends are coming around. And like Paul Dempsey's 6'5" or something, 6'6". He's not small. Watching Paul Dempsey get down to Wolfie's level and just get right in there and fully engage in total dad mode, and Bernard as well. These guys pulled out their top shelf dad moves. Watching them do what they did, yeah, they're great songwriters. Absolutely. But if I watch the way they engage with Wolfgang, they both do fathering really, really well as well. Just by seeing the things that they were doing with this guy, it was brilliant. These guys have been on a heck of a ride across their lives, hearing how they tie their own mental health journey and their experiences of life into this new music is just glorious. And I really love the record. I got sent a couple of tracks. I haven't heard all of it, but I got sent a couple of early tracks. It sounds nothing like anything they've ever done, and I really dug it. I love this chat, and I know you will too. When you talk to your kids about this idea of, well, such and such was said to you this at daycare, well, you could be this or that. How do you describe it to them?
Really just that, there are things that you can change and there are things that you can't change. And getting upset about something that you can't change is really wasted energy and doesn't make anything better. But if there are things about it that in a roundabout way you can change, whether it's your reaction to it or you can do something about the circumstances of whatever it is that's upsetting you, then focus on that. But yeah, I think it's just really – and I think even my 8-year-old can understand what she can't change. Because it's pretty easy to explain. You can't do anything about that. What could you do about it? And once you understand that you can't do anything about it, then you need to move on, or you're just banging your head against a wall. Yeah. And I think that's easy enough to – it's another thing to do it. Yeah. But you can start talking about it. You can have the conversation.
Yeah. And it's okay to be annoyed about it. It's not to say to be annoyed.
Sure. Yeah, it's that thing of you can't control – the situation, but you can influence it.
That's right.
By how you respond. Yeah. And that's even my kids are 14 and 12, and Gab, the elder one's daughter, picks on the 12-year-old, and he keeps responding. And I'm just saying to him, if you ignore her, you're going to have a much better day.
Right. Despite what your dad says, no audience, no show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing too, is you don't have to give oxygen.
Yeah, that's right.
You can just let it. But you make a really important point as well, though, that you never say to your kids like, it's not like you're saying, so stop being upset.
Yeah,
like you have to have those feelings and understand why you're upset. But so it's okay to feel your feelings, but just understand when you're letting it fester or because not moving on.
I mean, we're not really allowed to say it anymore, but there's a reason why there's a word called sooking. And when someone's being a sook, it's true. There's still sooking, even though you're not really allowed to say that to anybody anymore. Stop being a sook.
Yeah.
But there are times when you're indulging in your own self-pity and whatnot, and it's fair enough to actually call it out.
Yeah. If my sponsor were Australian, he would say, stop being calling us, he's American. He's like, he would ask me, he said, stop throwing your fucking pity party, mate.
Yeah, right.
So he go, come on, pal. He calls me pal. So it's a fucking pity party. Yeah. Because the way he talks about it is that if we hold onto resentment, we're usually holding onto it to justify shitty behavior.
Yeah.
All right, I'm doing this because of that. Like, it's not my fault, it's because of that. And it's like, well, really?
Yeah.
I didn't puppeteer your arms or legs to do the thing that just happened.
Yeah.
You're in control of that. But it's unfortunately, since you wasted on the young, you wasted on the young. So is this kind of awareness. I mean,
It's much easier to just react. It's always easier to just have a reaction.
Yeah.
Because something else made you react to it.
Yeah.
It's harder to be in charge of that reaction.
Yeah, trying to stay calm is the most difficult thing. I mean, the bickering side of things I find really difficult to deal with because you can see how unnecessary it is. But you think that it's unnecessary, but it's part of them forming their personalities as well and working out what dominance and submission and all those things are, and when you're going too far, and which, when you're 14 and 12, you're very reluctant to admit if you've gone too far. It's like, like we were talking about, it's because of this that he did that, she did that, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I'm really guilty of losing my shit as well. Like, I'd end up yelling at my kids because it's such a pain in the ass. So, I mean, isn't that,
come on, man, I've done
isn't that the reality for everybody though?
Absolutely.
And
I've met Dr. Phil's son. He got yelled at.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough. And, not always proud of myself for doing it, but sometimes it's what actually needs to happen.
But then you get the opportunity to model what an apology looks like.
Yeah.
And it's the hardest thing. It's certainly not, I think you and I, we're kind of Brisbane era, we had a very similar upbringing in, the kind of cultural version of what fatherhood is. But now the worst thing about being a parent, it's not the sleep. It's not the theme songs that, oh man, can we skip through this theme song, Max? It's a bit shit. Except the Octonauts, that's a really good one.
Yeah, that's a banger.
They don't do what you tell them. They do everything that you show them. And then it's like, oh, fuck, it's me.
Yeah.
And you kind of have this opportunity then, though, to go, okay, well, I just saw you do something I remember my dad doing, and the only reason you've not really met him, so the only reason you're doing that is because you've seen me do it. Fuck, okay.
Yeah. It's interesting though, like my dad was born in 1926, right? So he'd be 98 if he was alive now. So he grew up in an era that was complete, and I was the youngest of my family, and he was the youngest of his, of 10, right?
God damn.
So, and my grandfather was born in 1880. Yeah, so it's like the stretch back to these other times is massive. And so my dad was like a classic old school gentleman sort of thing, like buttoned down, always had his hair brill creamed, had his teeth clean, shaved.
Three-piece suit to the gabba?
No. Not, he wasn't. He worked in the Commonwealth Bank. He was not like a high-end guy. They were
at the Apple store.
Yeah.
It's an Apple store now.
Yeah. But I find myself now going back to his principles.
Oh wow!
Because he was a very respectful person. He was generally very calm, quiet, good listener, all that stuff. And they're the kind of things that I aspire to. I guess, right. And they're just universal, regardless of what era you live in.
Yeah.
Principles that you can aspire to.
When you're doing these gigs, like, do your kids care at all?
They're starting to enjoy it more now.
Oh.
Yeah, they're both decent musicians, and both seem pretty talented. So they never really did give a shit. They're more interested in whether they're getting a backstage pass than anything, than the concert itself.
Yeah. Our kids are also musical. Our son's like playing piano and guitar, and he's a pretty good singer. But they're actually both more interested in acting, and they've been doing a bit of that.
Nice.
They've been going to these theatre workshops every weekend for years now, and they've landed a couple of little roles, and they're really into that. And our son in particular, he's just turned 13, but he surprises me how serious and how committed he is to it. And like when there's time to do an audition, something like that, the hours that he puts into it, I'm like, okay, you mean it. You're serious about it.
Is it surprising when you were 13 and you were trying to figure stuff out on the guitar?
No, I was like that. I was completely obsessive, but it's hard, it's difficult to relate to because I've never had any interest in acting.
Right.
It's a completely different mindset. That
you're both telling stories, mate.
Yeah, but I think I would be a terrible actor. But
Paul, like I saw when I did Idol, there was 7 seasons that I did it, and for every one person that made it through to the 12, we see 1,000. All right,
Yeah.
Of those 1,000, probably 950 were really good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they would go like, how come I can sing this? I'm like, and I'd end up having these conversations with kids, and you wouldn't want to leave being so heartbroken, even though at the time that kind of television people watched, they like the schadenfreude of it.
Yeah.
And I would say to them, look, there's a difference between hitting the notes and making me believe what you're singing.
Yeah.
So when, I hear something of a Kate song, I fucking believe what you're singing because you're connecting with the emotion in it. There's, you watch 20 Feet from Stardom, there's a reason those people never hit because they couldn't connect here to there.
I think it's different when you're writing it, when you've written something and that is coming from, a deep place within yourself, then you can't not mean it. You can't fake that. So, I think that's different to, performing something that isn't necessarily your own expression.